halls of West Virginia resound with the sound of Golden Blue football.
Almost heaven, West Virginia.
Now let's bring on the Mountaineers. Goes around about the 50, the 10, the 5. A touchdown, West Virginia. He did it.
He did it. Patrick White. Touchdown, Tay Von Austin.
But Don Nehlen's Mountaineers enjoy walking in where angels feared to tread.
I think you think that these guys are going to fall over dead for you. Well, I got news for you. They're going to punch you right in the mouth. It's Mountaineer pride!
Nothing cheap, nothing dirty, but West Virginia football. West Virginia football.
Leave no doubt tonight. They shouldn't have played the old Golden Blue. Not this night.
They've done it. They've done it. A perfect season. And the Mountaineers, for the first time in history, undefeated and untied.
Don Nehlen and his Mountaineers, for the second time, have finished a regular season with an unblemished mark.
Ain't no stopping the Golden Blue.
And now recorded from the CRW studios in Almost Heaven, West Virginia, it's the Country Roads webcast with your host, Jordan Cruz.
What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome into the CRW podcast here for episode 194, and it's Brawl Week, baby. That's right, it's time to talk about the Backyard Brawl here for our preview and predictions, and to help me break this game down, I've got my two co-hosts with me. We've got Bradley.
What up, y'all? Eat shit pit.
And Steven.
Hey, what up, baby? Eat shit pit. Sweet Caroline.
That's right. It's that time. Sweet Caroline, time to talk about the team that enjoys the mastification of defecation. And we're ready to get into it and break this thing down. It's going to be the 107th Backyard Brawl. Pitt's coming in 2-0. West Virginia coming in 1-1. Going to be September 14th, 3:30 kick, televised on ESPN2. Guys, opening thoughts. How you feeling about this matchup before we get into breaking it down on each side of the ball? What are you feeling here going into this one, Steven?
I always kind of feel nervous during the week of this game, but I don't, mostly hatred. That's what I feel. If you want my complete honest answer.
Great way to sum it up. Brad, what about you, brother?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that going into the season, you're looking at this Pitt game as a real tune-up opportunity, but I think that, they've shown that maybe they're not going to be as easy of a pushover as we thought, but still walking into it, I feel like nothing's acceptable except for a sound ass whipping.
That's what we're hoping for. That's what we're hoping for here in this rivalry. Like Steven said, pure hatred going into it. So both sides wanting to get this win. And, West Virginia's looking to go to 2-1 if they get this win, not only on the season, but then they'd be 2-1 since the return of this rivalry as well. So that's something that we're hoping to see happen. As far as Pitt's concerned, still head coach Pat Narduzzi, his 10th season there at Pitt. He needs a good year this year because, after last year, maybe a little bit of the temperature turned up on his seat, but they've had a good start to the season with 2 wins, one over Kent State and then one over Cincinnati in comeback style last week. But let's talk a little bit about the matchups on each side of the ball. Let's start talking first here about the Pitt offense against the West Virginia defense. And this is the matchup I'm probably most interested in just because of the changes on the Pitt offense. It's not the same Pitt offense that West Virginia has seen the past couple of meetings. They brought in a new offensive coordinator in Cade Bell from Western Carolina. He led the FCS in total yards last year, and they're running a fast-paced, up-tempo style offense. They're trying to snap the ball within 17 seconds between each play. I watched them play their first couple of games, and they're definitely doing some interesting things on that side of the ball. Their quarterback's Eli Holstein. He's a redshirt freshman, transferred in from Alabama. Large frame, 6', 225. 6'4", 225, and kind of similar body style to what Drew Aller presented. And he does have some abilities to, scramble and make plays. He's picked up some first downs for them doing that, much like Aller did against us. Pretty good performances in his first 2 contests, over 300 yards and 3 TDs in both their first 2 games, but also has thrown an interception in both those first 2 games. The guys he's throwing the ball to, they still have Kanata Mumpfield. He's going to be their main target, probably the biggest threat there as far as the receivers are concerned. Had 123 yards and 2 touchdowns last week versus Cincinnati. Sincere Lee also came over from Western Carolina, following as offensive coordinator. He's been a threat there for them at the receiver spot. And then they have Kenny Johnson, who is, kind of a big play threat with his speed. But the guy that really is kind of the highlight of their offense for me when I've been watching them is their running back, Desmond Reed. And he really reminds me a lot of Jaheim White. And you guys know how I feel about Jaheim White. So that's high praise coming from me there. He's also coming in from Western Carolina as a transfer, joining the offensive coordinator. And last week, he became the first Pitt running back ever to have 100 rushing yards and 100 receiving yards in the same game. And he currently leads the nation in all-purpose yardage. He's a big play waiting to happen. So West Virginia going to have their hands full, especially with some of the struggles they've had on the back end of the defense. But hopefully they're able to correct that heading into this game and be more prepared to take on this now seemingly explosive Pitt offense that looks way different than it has in previous matchups. Brad, how are you feeling about this matchup with the West Virginia defense going up against this new look Pitt offense?
Yeah, and I think that when you say Pitt has the ball, that means that we do not, and that's where my issues lie. And it's just, the defense at this point has got a fit foe, which means, figure it the F out. We've not looked great on defense for a few years now, and we had some dudes get up, and granted, I'll say Albany's wide receivers made some pretty good catches. Definitely had really good, solid hands. But at the same time, we didn't make it very difficult on them. And so we're at that point now where it's scary, and I don't know if we have the offense to be able to just – I think we're going to have a dominant offense. I just don't think we have the offense that's built to come from behind or to get into shootouts and win. I think we're a plug and chug, and we're meant to, try to capitalize on good field position and, solid defense. And if you just get the top taken off every time, we've seen what happens when we lose the field position battle. And so, if these guys are driving deep, even if we get a stop and pinning us inside, we've shown that we struggle with that sometimes. So, this defense has got to figure something out. And because, again, if we're having to score 50, I don't see it happening.
Yeah, that's not a great recipe is to, have to win via shootout game in and game out. So hopefully the defense is able to make some adjustments here heading into this one. I'm hoping to see some changes in maybe the style of coverages that we're playing, but I'm kind of guessing and hoping that we'll see some different faces there at the cornerback position. I think Jacoby Spells deserves some more playing time there. Wouldn't be mind to see him. We'll see what happens there. But definitely I think some changes needed, especially on the back end of West Virginia's defense. The run defense has been pretty good, but the pass defense is what we're going to need to improve. And, of course, Pitt, seeing that on film as well, may look to throw the ball a little bit more. And they've thrown it, 35 or 40 times in their first couple of games. So it's definitely something that they can do, and they seem to have more pieces to be able to do that this year. Stephen, how are you feeling, though, about this West Virginia defense going up against this Pitt offense and how it's kind of changed and evolved into its new form under offensive coordinator Cade Bell?
It's kind of inadvertently put the nail on the head right there. Their offense has changed and evolved, whereas, you just mentioned it, our defense has stayed stagnant in what we have been able to identify ourselves as on the defensive side of the ball. We're really good at stopping the run. We're very subpar on the back end when it comes to defending the pass. To me, it's a glaringly obvious issue, and what I've been saying is a schematic issue. I don't believe that with as many pieces that you've been, you can plug and play in there, and it remains the same, over not just the last two games, but over the last 2 to 3 seasons under Jordan Leslie. And I hate to harp on a guy, but I mean, it has to fall back on a schematic issue because there's talent there. We've seen talent there. You know what I mean? And then you have so many guys that are so far out of position on so many plays. Those things have to be cleaned up. And I don't know really. I mean, it's obviously a lot easier said than done. That's why we're doing this, and they get paid big bucks to coach the game, and we don't. So I'm not saying that I know what the problem is and how to fix it, or I know what the problem is. I'm not saying I know how to fix it, but we've got to figure it out.
It's also because you get paid millions to figure that out.
I was getting ready to say that, Brad. That's why Neil Brown took a $400,000 pay cut to pay these guys. To figure these types of things out and not to remain the same on that side of the ball. And then we're going to get to that on the offensive side. But before foreshadowing here. That I feel very much the same about that side of the ball as well. We can't sit here and have we talked all season about the depth that we have on all these different positions and everything. I find it hard to believe that all of these issues we're having is because we're not putting the right guys out there.
Yeah, exactly. Because
Can't be
again,
just
like
that.
we're not making it any easier on the DBs. Like we don't bring pressure very often. We're expecting 3 or 4 guys to get home every other play, and so that's just what we bring. And so that's also putting them at a disadvantage. You bring some heat, you bring some pressure, you get some quarterback movement in there, and then you can make some things happen. But when you just let them sit back there all day, you just got to hope that you're outright beating their offensive line, and that doesn't happen very often.
Well, we didn't even talk about losing
Eddie V.
Losing Eddie V.
Yeah.
We're already depleted at the defensive line position. The one thing that we are good at is stopping the run. That really hurts that. So what are we going to do if we can't stop the run or the pass? We're going to be in a really, really bad spot. So
yeah, that comes back to thank God we got 1.5 million DBs over the summer, but we're playing Rodney Gallagher.
Yeah. I seen an article earlier. I can't think of who wrote it, but I seen earlier. Is he done playing both sides of the ball? And I'm in favor of him sticking to one side of the ball. I get that he can be talented at both. I get he can be talented at both, and that's great. And in the right scenarios, absolutely. I remember Pac-Man Jones being a great cornerback, and in the right scenarios, they brought him in to play wide receiver. But he didn't play both positions all game long and gas himself out for no reason when you have plenty of options at both positions. And I don't know which one I'd rather him be at, but pick one. And I feel like it would benefit him and the team greatly.
Well, I don't know. And going back to talking about Eddie V a little bit, I think that the one silver lining about that is that you're probably going to get to see TJ Jackson into the starting lineup, who has probably been our most impressive defensive lineman throughout these first couple of games, 3 TFLs in the first 2 games. So that's the silver lining, but you're also kind of losing that spark off the bench. So it's a good opportunity for, Asani Redwood too, though, to maybe start providing that spark. But, what I'm really hoping to see is something, Brad brought up there as well, is we need a better pass rush, especially in this game. Eli Holstein has shown some good capabilities, but he's also shown capability to make some mistakes as a redshirt freshman, particularly when you do get, some pressure on him. So I'm hoping that West Virginia has been holding some things close to the vest that they haven't really unveiled yet. Because if you guys remember throughout the offseason, that's one of the reasons that they wanted Aubrey Burks at that spear position was because of his blitzing ability. They felt like he kind of had a knack for it, and we really haven't used that so much yet. So I'm hoping to see some blitzes from that spear spot from Aubrey Burks, maybe using Ty French a little bit differently on some more exotic blitzes, and really doing some things to hopefully put some pressure on the quarterback, because if we're going to be susceptible in the back end, at least maybe we get some pressure on the quarterback to help combat that, and then maybe he makes a mistake and we can force some turnovers, because I think we're going to need sacks or turnovers or both in this game, especially if, the coverage on the back end doesn't improve like we're hoping to see it.
Yeah. I would expect that too, especially if they're going to be trying to go up tempo. I would expect when West Virginia has the ball, we're going to try to eat some clock.
Yeah.
So I would also expect that to speed the Pitt offensive tempo up a little bit more on our defense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's going to be
that tempo can be
watch.
It can be a double-edged sword. It can be great. Maybe they can catch us off guard, catch us misaligned. I'm hoping it's something we're going to be prepared for, but also it could hurt them, because if they're going quick and they just go 3 and out, get the ball to our offense. And like you said, we're trying to eat clock, control the game, keep their offense off the field a little bit. If our defense can come out and show up and be ready to play in this game and be ready for that tempo, it could, work to our favor potentially, but they're going to have to come out and be ready because there are some playmakers on that Pitt offense. I didn't even mention the tight end, Gavin Bartholomew. He's still there. Had to deal with him the past couple of years. He's a good tight end. And, Desmond Reed, man, I'm telling you, him and Jaheim White remind me so much of each other. I'm worried about that guy. He's a really good player, man. We're going to have to be ready for him.
Yeah, just give me the bend, don't break. If we can just go defense that can get behind that, we'll be fine.
Yeah, hopefully they're ready.
Give up big plays, get them inside the 20, and then let them kick a field goal.
Let's not forget, Pitt has – I'm not trying to dog Cincinnati in any way, but Cincinnati's not going to be upper echelon in this league this year, if we're being honest. And they haven't, people talk about West Virginia all the time last year. Well, we didn't play nobody. We didn't play nobody. Well, I mean, the two teams that they've played so far really haven't. They're not that impressive of teams. So,
yeah, I believe Kent State lost to a Division II school in week 2, so definitely not showing anything there. And Cincinnati, like you said, probably mid-tier Big 12 team this year at best. So, and they were, let's not forget, they were down 21 points and played bad for 3.5 quarters. It was that last quarter and a half where they really got it going, which kind of gives me some hope, because you can look at this one of two ways. You can look at, if you're looking at just the raw numbers, you're like, oh, Holstein's thrown for 300 plus in both his games and 3 TDs in both his games, and they have some explosive playmakers. But you can also look at the other side of that coin and look at the first 3.5 quarters of that game against Cincinnati, where he threw an interception. I think he only had like 75 yards up into that point in the third quarter. And then, he had a really strong fourth quarter. So, I mean, really, you can look at it one of two ways. If Pitt doesn't come back and beat Cincinnati, we're probably not thinking as highly of their offense right now as we've kind of been talking throughout here. So it's definitely, not an offense that's unstoppable. It's definitely made some improvements, but there's a lot of, young pieces on it as well that could be, susceptible to making mistakes if we can force them into them.
Oh, yeah. These games never really go, the way they're supposed to go. There's always,
you never know what you're going to get with these rivalries.
Yeah.
But man, I hope the defense shows up and they're brawl ready. And if you want to be brawl ready, work ready, school ready, ready to attack whatever task you have, no matter how meaningful or menial, be sure to get you some Magic Mind to help you be able to do that. Not only will it help you attack it, it will help you attack it vigorously throughout your day, give you so much better energy, better focus, better mental clarity throughout your day to take on any task that you have at hand, much like the Mountaineers are hoping to deal with the task of the Pitt Panthers. Not only is it good, but it's good for you as well. 100% all natural ingredients. They give you your money back guarantee within 100 days of purchase if you don't enjoy it. And you also, of course, can get the discount code from us here at the Country Roads Webcast. Just head to our link, magicmind.com/countrylt, to get a discount on this mental performance shot. You get 48% off your first subscription or 20% off a one-time purchase. So no better time to try it. That's code CountryLT20 at magicmind.com/countrylt. Try your Magic Mind today. So having said that, gentlemen, you guys got anything else on the Pitt offense versus the Mountaineer defense, or are we ready to flip it over and talk a little bit about the other side?
Flip it and reverse it.
Yeah, just looking at Asani Redwood. I've been looking forward to that dude for years. I hope he just sparks it and comes on.
It's his time. He's finally healthy. And I'm personally thinking the same about Jacoby Spells. He got in for about 10 snaps late last week and was one of the higher coverage grades that we had. And Albany never took their starters out either. So he was facing the same players. So I'm hoping, this week they talked about maybe being some personnel changes. It's going to be an open competition at one of those cornerback spots. So I think there's a good chance we see some more Spells as well. And it's, those guys like Spells and Redwood, this is kind of the opportunity they've been waiting on. So hopefully they come out and they show out.
Yeah, if you guys didn't know, Asani Redwood had 20 sacks his senior year.
Yeah, he was a monster.
One season in Georgia. So take with that as you will. Back in high school about 4 years ago now, but
it's got a high ceiling. We're ready to see him reach it.
Very high, yeah.
For sure. All right, so let's flip it over, gentlemen. Talk a little bit about the West Virginia offense now, going up against the Pitt defense. Pitt defense, not too many changes. It's kind of similar to the defense we have seen, kind of the inverse of what we were talking about with the offense there. They keep the same coordinator, Randy Bates, still there, his 7th season with Pitt. They're still going to be that attacking defense. A lot of blitzes, a lot of cover zero looks with quarters on the back end. Kind of the same style we've seen recently for them. Kind of their standout players, their main star on defense is the defensive back, Donovan McMillan. 15 tackles last game, 10 of those being solo, and had an interception against Kent State. Linebacker Rashawn Biles has been their highest graded player per PFF in both of their first 2 games, 78.5 defensive grade in their first game, 84.5 defensive grade in their second game. And defensive lineman Nate Matlock has 2 sacks. Their defense has registered 8 sacks across their first 2 games, so you know that they're always still coming with that attacking blitzing style. But then when you flip it over and talk a little bit about West Virginia going up against them, I think you get some new faces that haven't really gotten to play in this rivalry yet. One of those being Garrett Green. We know he went down in the first series of last year's game. So, his final year here at WVU, he finally gets his shot in the Backyard Brawl to make a statement. And then same goes for Jaheim White. He wasn't, really playing yet when we played Pitt last year. So they know a lot about C.J. Donaldson, but hopefully they're going to learn about Jaheim White in this game for sure. Jaheim White and Garrett Green, two guys to look out for, I think, in this game to hopefully have big games, and West Virginia's probably going to need it. As we were talking about with the defense going up against the Pitt offense, Pitt's probably going to score some points, so West Virginia's going to have to do the same in turn. Stephen, how are you feeling about their ability to be able to do that going up against this Pitt defense?
You said it just a minute ago with the Garrett Green thing. Gigi still has not gotten a chance to play in this game, and he's been on the sidelines for both games. So I'm sure he's chomping at the bit to be able to play in this rivalry because, man, we've all seen Gigi and we've seen the emotion that he shows this game. Like, he lives for games like this. And I bet you anything he's going to be in their face all game long. Mm-hmm. So
I'm ready to see.
I'm really excited to see him. I'm really excited and two other players. I really think we should have a good day running the ball. I really look for us to have a really good day on the ground because CJ, I think he's primed to have a pretty good day on the ground because, for one, he went off in the Backyard Brawl before his freshman year, coming out of nowhere. And then last year he also had a pretty stellar game in the Backyard Brawl. And then I'm looking for him. And then, of course, Jaheim's just balling anyway. So I don't know. Yeah. I really would love to say positive things about our receiving game, but they got to show me something, man. I haven't seen anything out of them in 2 games. And then you go up against a defense like that in Albany, or Albany, I guess is what they go by. That was very discouraging, I will say. Just because you were right. They played man all game long, and we could not seem to catch the football. And it just seemed like a recurring nightmare the whole night long. I don't know. But the highlight play for me of the night, well, 2 of them, was Gigi's touchdown and then Nico's rushing touchdown. Love that for Nico.
Both looked good. They're doing that as well. And, going back to what you said about the receivers, this is going to be, their chance to do that. Something they talked about all off season was, hey, press man covered, 0 blitzes, bring it on. We're ready for it. So they're going to see that over and over again in this game. Pitt's going to be pressed up on those corners. They're going to be sending a lot of blitzes, a lot of cover 0. So it's going to be their opportunity to, get free, win that one-on-one, and hopefully turn it into a big play for West Virginia. And I like your point about CJ as well. Over 100 yards rushing each of the last 2 games against Pitt. So I'm sure he's, foaming at the mouth to play the Panthers again. He's had 2 great games against them the past couple of years. But like you said, maybe they're focused on CJ. Hey, there you go. Good call. But maybe they're focused on CJ, and, that allows Jaheim to shine as well. I think both those guys could have good games, and we're going to need them both to have good games in this one for sure. Yeah. We're going to have to establish the run to get this offense rolling. Brad, how are you feeling, though, about this matchup, man?
Yeah, I feel great. I feel like this one comes all down to a mental game. You got to come in, you got to play ball. We have the talent to beat anybody, but we saw that against Penn State, that if you don't come with the right mindset, all that goes to naught. You might as well not have an offense at that point. So can't be shaking in our boots. I don't think we're going to be too big. Honestly, I think they're going to play a little scot-free because you're walking into somebody else's house. Everybody wants you to lose. You can kind of embrace that enemy mentality and just, pitch into it, whereas if you're in your hometown, you got all your eyes on you and there's a lot of expectations on you. So really, I think as long as they can come out there and be comfortable, man. But I agree with Steven. I think all Mountaineer Nation's looking at our wide receivers and saying, when is this going to happen? When was the last time we had an it man? Well, we've got a playmaker at quarterback. We got a playmaker at wide receiver. You got a few on the offensive line. But when was the last time we had a dog at wide receiver? I couldn't tell you in Neil Brown's career here. I couldn't tell you one.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've had an alpha.
Yeah. Give me one
David
guy
Hills,
that
I think, was the last guy. What I mean? He was the last one.
I think so. Yeah, that's
probably. And so you've not had anybody that just came out and said, I'm here and let's do this thing. And
I'm about to go try.
And I wouldn't even mind if it's Cole.
I know I can catch the ball.
Even if it's a tight end, I'm fine with that.
I'll catch the ball and go straight to the ground every time because I ain't got no speed or no type of agility left in me. But I can catch a daggone football.
Hey, we're going to need them to make some receptions in this one for sure. They're going to have to make some plays because the way I look at it, Pitt's probably going to be keying on our run game. Like I said, we've had good games, past couple of games, so to maybe be able to open up that run game, we're going to have to use the pass to open up the run instead of vice versa. But we're going to need both to be successful in this game for certain. And, another aspect to look at with this, always with these regional rivals, is some guys that both teams recruited, or in some cases, some teams didn't recruit. Because I think about Jaquay Hubbard, talking about, I think it was on Three Guys over the summer. He was talking about he grew up in, Pennsylvania, but never liked Pitt. They didn't recruit him. Nick Malone was going to go to Pitt. They pulled his scholarship. He ends up walking on at West Virginia now as a starter. So that right side of the offensive line should be extra motivated for this game. Hopefully that allows them to play well. And then, some other Pennsylvania guys on the roster as well. Jaheim White that we mentioned being one of them. Rodney Gallagher being one of them. I'm sure that they're going to be hungry to show out in this rivalry and really make some plays for WVU.
Absolutely. That's really what this what brings out the best of this rivalry is those exact situations.
For sure. For sure.
That's kind of like the old school part of it, I guess, to me, which you don't really get so prominently in today's game with all the national recruiting and the transfer portal and things of that nature. But, that's what this rivalry used to always be about was, like you had so many guys growing up around the Pittsburgh area in Pennsylvania and not getting recruited by Pitt or just not liking Pitt or, the way my papa describes it, the older kids always got to go to Pitt and, it was always cheaper for kids to go to WVU even with out-of-state tuition than it was for them to send a second child to Pitt. So then, you got the younger siblings going to West Virginia and that creates the household rivalry. But then,
it's the regionality that you miss in today's college football.
Yeah, then you got people like me who genuinely hate Pitt in their entire existence.
As we all should throughout Mountaineer Nation. But, I think it's a good point to, bring up about our receivers, to bring up about Cole Taylor, because when I look at Pitt's defense, as usually is the case, their front seven's pretty strong. And like I said, I think they're going to sell out to stop the run. But where they've looked susceptible is in the back end. Their corners as well have, much like West Virginia, looked like they can, be beaten at times. So we're going to have to, try and take advantage of that.
Yeah. If it's anytime the receiver's going to, we're going to show up, it's going to be this game. It should be this game.
Yeah, they have to.
Got to.
Because,
gotta have
it. This game's not only the backyard brawl, but it catapults you into the next few weeks. I think.
Yes.
Next week is a bye week. Is it next week?
No, we got Kansas. Then I think it's the bye after that, or then it's Oklahoma State, then the bye. I can't remember, but at least got Kansas.
No, you're right. You're right. And the next week is Kansas, but it catapults you anyway, moving forward. Into
that
the
meat
Big
of your
12 play.
schedule.
Exactly. This is where you start getting into that meat of your schedule that we talked about in the preseason.
Yep.
Where you've really got to win the majority of these next 5 games, if not 6. I mean, Texas Tech's probably not going to be a challenge. That from Cincinnati on, you may have a little bit better chances in those football games, but from here till October 26th, we've got a pretty rough ride ahead of us, I guess you could say, from what we've seen in the Big 12 Conference so far. So we're going to have to figure out a lot of the issues that we've been having if we expect to win even 3 of those football games, because a lot of those teams that Arizona, very good offensively, they will torch us if we don't figure stuff out on the back end.
Absolutely. Got to get that pass defense corrected by then for sure.
Oklahoma State, same thing. There's just things you've got to get corrected if you expect to have the kind of year that we all wanted to have, including the team themselves. It was there.
I think this can be the barometer game this year.
Mm-hmm. I think so too. I thought Penn State would be the barometer game
for the last 3 years, honestly.
True.
Yeah.
Even playing them the first game of the year felt like a barometer game,
Well, that's a good point, too, because we didn't go on to have a great year when we lost to them. And then last year when we beat them, we went, 9-4. So it definitely seems like it is going to be the barometer. And I think it's really going to be the barometer for how our pass defense can hold up. Because if they come out and get torched by Holstein and Mumfield on the Pitt offense, we're going to have to definitely have some problems. But hopefully that shows they got some things corrected on the defensive side. And then our offense, I think we started to see last week a little bit of kind of the shades of the offense that we saw late last season. If they come out and look that same way against Pitt here, then we really could be cooking with gas heading into that Big 12 schedule. In those first 5 games, they're going to be really must-haves, and kind of the tough part of Steven's talking about there. So definitely going to be a big barometer for the season going forward.
Yeah. I mean, it's not surprising. It always, more often than not, was a barometer when we played them before. So
True, very much so. But that's kind of our thoughts on the matchups there. We're getting ready to get into key to victory and score predictions. But before we do want to briefly mention special teams. Pitt does have a new special teams coordinator as well in Jacob Gronkowski. He's coming over from Miami of Ohio, where they had the most efficient special teams unit in the nation last year, according to ESPN's ratings. And Pitt has some good players on those special teams unit. Great kicker still around there in Ben Sauls, 8 of 8 on the year. He's hit from 50+, and he hit the game winner last week to take down Cincinnati. Their punt returner is the running back Desmond Reed, and he's already ran a punt back for a touchdown this year. That guy, super explosive, as I mentioned earlier. And then the kick returner is Kenny Johnston, who's also been explosive for them, ran a kickback for 100 yards last season. So West Virginia's had good special teams this year, but so is Pitt. So that's going to be an interesting matchup to watch, and one that could end up ultimately determining this game is who has the advantage there, because from what we've talked about on offense and defense, kind of similar matchups. So really something like special teams could end up being the tipping point in this game. Who's to say?
I mean, who's to say that a blocked field goal, isn't going to end the half or end the game? You know what I mean?
Or running into
a game-winning field goal, or
corner, or anything, or
Well, because I think last year they blocked a punt of ours, and of course we blocked one of theirs back in 2022. So there's been special teams plays made in this game the past couple of years.
Oh yeah, this game's got a huge history of special teams playing influence on this game.
But that is the matchups on all sides there, offense, defense, and a little bit of special teams there as the cherry on top. But now, gentlemen, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Let's talk keys to victory, and then we will make our predictions for this contest. And then, of course, we'll wrap up the show by looking around the Big 12, making some picks for the other games going on in the conference. But let's talk key to victory first. Brad, let you kick this one off. What's your key to a West Virginia win in the Backyard Brawl here, the 107th edition?
Yeah, I think it's all about Garrett Green coming in and having fun. I think if he comes in, just gets the offense rolling early, I think that this is one of the few teams, like I said, we don't want to get in shootouts, but I think that we could probably scoot it around a little bit on Pitt's defense. So, if it's going to be one of them. So as long as Garrett Green comes in with that it in him and plays a good game, I think that we win no matter what.
He's going to be a major key for sure. Like we talked about earlier, his first chance to really get to play extensively in this rivalry. And of course, it's his last year here at WVU, so the only chance he's going to get. So definitely he's going to play a major part if West Virginia comes out and gets the win. So great key there. For me, my key to victory is winning in the trenches. And I think that this applies on both sides of the ball, really. We talked about it earlier. We have to generate a pass rush on defense, and we're going to have to protect Garrett Green on offense. Pitt's weakness really seems to be kind of the offensive line on their offensive side. Had low run blocking grade versus Kent State at a 53.9 and a low pass blocking grade versus Cincinnati at a 58.5. So if we can get some pass rush in there, I think we can force Holstein into some mistakes. And then on the other side of the ball, they have been racking up sacks, but I mentioned they are susceptible in the back end. Cincinnati had nearly 300 passing yards on them, 449 total yards, and Pitt's coverage grade was only a 58.2. So if West Virginia can protect Garrett Green, take some of those deep shots downfield, it's going to make a difference. So West Virginia needs to win in the trenches on both sides of the football. That's my key to victory in this one. Stephen, what about you? What do you got as your key here?
I really wanted to go with what Brad said and go with Garrett Green because of what we mentioned before, with this being his first and only backyard brawl that he's going to be able to get the chance to play in. But I'm going to be a little bit different here, and I think my key to victory really is going to be if West Virginia can disrupt their offensive tempo. If we can really make it hard for those guys to get going on offense and have any kind of chemistry all day long, I think that's really going to feed over to the offensive side of the ball to where we're going to have, a really good day there. I'm confident West Virginia will have a good day on the ground, but I hope the defense can make some plays to where our offense can, like you said, catch them over top and catch that defense lacking, and try to get them coming up and try to play the run a little bit more. So that I think it'll be a little bit closer of a game than what I originally thought it was going to be. But for me, that I think if West Virginia can do that, they'll have a good day.
That's a great point. Going to have to deal with that tempo. And it's also something we haven't seen yet this year. So it'll be this year's defense first time having to deal with an up-tempo offense like that that's moving fast-paced, trying to snap the ball as quickly as possible. So definitely that's a major key for this game. Love the keys there, gentlemen. Now it's time. Let's get into it. Score predictions for the Backyard Brawl this year. West Virginia gets the win last year over Pitt. We're looking to make it 2 in a row. And also it would be the first time that either one of these teams has gotten a win on the road in this rivalry since it came back in 2022. Pitt won at home. West Virginia won at home. Now the Mountaineers traveling back to Acrisure Stadium, hoping to get the win and get it done. Stephen, we'll let you go first this time. What's your prediction here for the 107th Backyard Brawl?
I, for no particular reason, have a score that's been stuck in my head all daggone day long. I'm going with 33-30 WVU.
All right. I like it. I like it. I think some points are going to be scored in this game, so I could definitely see that happening. Brad, what about you, my friend? What's your score prediction for the Mountaineers versus the Panthers in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I definitely see the 30-point mark. I think that the Mountaineers go 35. I think Pitt goes 17. I think it's a couple touchdown win there.
Like it.
Okay, I like it. I like the confidence. Brad's got the cover. Brad's got the cover. I love it. I'm thinking kind of along the same lines. My score's actually kind of close to yours, Steven. Surprise, surprise. We're thinking along the same lines again. It seems to be a theme of the show here in season 7. But when I look at, Pitt so far in this year, look at the game against Kent State. Kent State put up 24 points, but they were held scoreless in the fourth quarter. Cincinnati put up 27 points, but they were held scoreless in the fourth quarter. So it seems to me Pitt's defense has really been cranking things up in the fourth quarter. I think West Virginia is going to have to take note of that, and they're going to have to come out and score in the fourth quarter. And I think they're going to need to. They're going to need to probably get over 30+. I think Pitt's offense is going to do some things in this game, so West Virginia might get into a shootout with them. But I think West Virginia will find a way to score in the fourth quarter and be the first team that does that to Pitt this season. And I think they'll need the 30+ points because I've got West Virginia winning a close one, 35-31 over the Pitt Panthers. So at least we're unanimous, all picking the Mountaineers to get the win.
Have we ever picked the Spit Panthers to beat WVU? Never gonna happen.
And I'm not going to lie, like when I was going over my notes, looking at some of their film, watching some things on them, there's a part of me that's like, this game is dangerous because, going into the season, I thought this would be an easy win. But then I'm like, I don't know, Pitt's definitely got a chance in this one. The way our secondary's been looking, I'm like, there's no way. There's no way I can bring myself to even pick Pitt to win this game without just sitting here and vomiting on the podcast if I did it. So I can't do it. I gotta ride with the Mountaineers.
I'm gonna let you in on a little secret here, Cruzy. It don't never matter. It don't never matter in this game. I just watched.
That's true.
Watched the 2009 West Virginia and Pitt game, where they were 6-0 in the Big East Conference and 9-0 overall record and number 9 in the country.
Yeah, I was gonna say 8 or 9 in the country. I remember. Yeah, that was our revenge finally.
Yep.
For a couple years before.
And that wasn't revenge, if that. It wasn't the same. They don't know. Nope. That to me wasn't revenge. Like, we could beat them 20 to 30 years in a row. That's revenge.
True. And we have been, doing pretty good in the series, in the post, since about the 90s, 2000s on, we've kind of owned this thing. So hopefully we're able to keep it going. We're all feeling good about it. We're all picking the West Virginia win. So we're excited, man. Backyard Brawl week, one of the best weeks of the year. One of the most important games to this fan base. So hopefully West Virginia comes out and shows out for the Big 12 conference, gets a big win over the ACC there. Would be nice for the conference. And speaking of that conference, guys, let's talk a little bit about it. Let's pull up this week's slate and make our picks for the games happening around the Big 12 here in week 3. Hard to believe we're already about to be, a fourth of the way done with the season after this week, but it moves quick. So
that's what sucks about playing against a team like Penn State the first weekend.
Drains you after that a little bit.
And talking about schedules, while we're going to be looking at schedules, how do you guys feel about dropping Alabama or keeping Alabama on?
I'm all for the drop.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned it because I was just talking to Cruz the other day. I messaged him. I was like, man, what do you think about going down to Tuscaloosa in a few years? And he was like, man, I think it would be cool, but I don't think we're going to be watching them play West Virginia. So that was I was like, what? And originally I was kind of upset, but I think now thinking about it, there really isn't a catch for WVU to play that game now with Nick Saban being gone. And then also, what does it benefit WVU to play a team of that caliber when nobody else in the country is doing that? So I'm in favor of the drop, especially if it means we can extend the series with Spit a little bit longer.
Yeah, it seems like we got a good chance to do that because I think they have open dates on the schedule those 2 years. So,
well, you can't say that
like a good possibility.
You can't say that their athletic director is on board. That's the thing about it. Pitt's athletic director was let go this week, so now that's in limbo whether or not the new athletic director is going to be on board with doing it. Which obviously they should be, but that just
hopefully
remains to be seen. Yeah,
I understand if they're scared.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. They're scared.
There's another team. There's another team that is scared, but I'm not going to mention names because I actually respect that rival a little bit.
I feel you, but I think that it'd be good because moving forward, West Virginia's schedule needs to be like most other teams. Play an FCS, play a group of 5, and then one Power 5 that's hopefully a rival. Hopefully, if it's Pitt, that'd be great. I'm sure we all would love that. So, I would have liked to see us play Alabama, but I'd rather see us play Pitt. So I'm all for it.
I also was looking forward to the Alabama series because I was hoping Nick Saban would come to Morgantown.
Yes.
And the reception from everybody involved would have been amazing. You know what I mean? Like nobody
in still could have shown up. You know what I mean? I'm sure that they would have killed to have Pat McAfee and Nick Saban on game day for West Virginia versus Alabama.
That would have been nice.
Top tier content, man. I love them two together. I mean, it's so funny.
Saban's been a great addition, and we know how much we love McAfee, so I couldn't agree more.
Absolutely. And I respect Saban as a football coach, but obviously, him being from West Virginia, that's the coolest thing ever to have two West Virginia presences, on College Game Day and on ESPN, most really prevalent on ESPN. Because, speaking of this rivalry in this week, having to grow up in the Mark May and Lou Holtz era, that was rough, man. That was rough.
It was.
It's just nice to have some people on our side in the national media in sports talk.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. Been a long time coming for sure. But we've definitely been enjoying it throughout Mountaineer Nation. All right, gentlemen, let's get into our Around the Big 12 this week. Week 3, got a few weekday games and then a nice Saturday slate as well. So we're leading it off on Thursday. We got a Thursday night contest here, 7:30 Eastern. It's going to be on ESPN. Arizona State traveling cross country to go down to San Marcos and play the Texas State Bobcats. I think the Arizona State's kind of been the surprise of the Big 12 thus far. I really like Scatabo, that running back, and I think that Kenny Dillingham has them, already performing a lot better than people expected. I'm going to ride, their wave. I'm going to go with Arizona State on this one. What about you, Stephen?
Funny you mentioned that. I got Scatabo on my fantasy team in college. Yeah, I'm riding with the Sun Devils just because of that.
Dude's a beast. He's a beast, man. 200-plus rushing yards last week, 33 carries, I think. So definitely they're going to feed him. That's a good fantasy player to have. Brad, what about you? How you feeling about this one?
Not like you said, Arizona State's a surprise. Surprises are momentary. Give me Texas State.
Oh, okay. I like it. It's going to be a tough challenge going across country to play them, and Texas State's sneaky good. So
I think Texas State's really solid, and I think the one again, you're walking into their house. I think you kind of catch them on an off day. Arizona State might be feeling themselves a little bit. You walk into a brick wall, and you're like, oh yeah, this is why we thought Arizona State might not be good.
That's true. It's true. Riding high could be time for a letdown. Could be right there. So. Let's go to the Friday slate now. We do have a couple of good games here on Friday. UNLV and Kansas being one of those. We've already seen UNLV beat one Big 12 team handily this year when they took down Houston. They're playing at Kansas, though, even though obviously it's not Kansas home field. We know they're playing all their home games in Kansas City this year. 7 o'clock kick again, and it's going to be televised on ESPN. Brad, let you take the pick here first this time. Who do you got between UNLV and Kansas?
I actually think this is going to be a really good game, but I'm still going to go with Kansas on it. I think that they got the power that they need to get through it. I just think that UNLV has already shown that they can hang around, and traveling to a stadium that's not your own stadium is going to matter. But I still think that Kansas pulls this out. I think they're just a better football team, and I think that they'll figure out a way to handle it. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's close.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I don't think Kansas is going to lose, 2 in a row. They're looking for a bounce back win. And plus, I'd rather have them get this win and then have to come into Morgantown feeling a little bit better about themselves than versus them coming into Morgantown on a 2-game losing streak. I think that Kansas maybe was a tad bit overrated heading into the season after having watching them play now. Maybe Andy Kotelnicki had a lot more to do with the success than we previously realized. We'll see what happens moving forward, though, but I do think they'll have enough to get it done this one. I'm going to go with Kansas as well. Steven, what about you?
Cruzy Poo, we're going to have a talk about, your dialogue and stuff before the show going forward because you always take my stuff I was going to say. I was going to say that, man. Kotelnicki had a lot more to do with this offense than what people give it credit for. I think that this Kansas team isn't quite regressed into the old, the Kansas of old, I guess I should say. They do still have some talent and some playmakers on that offensive side of the football, but I don't think that they're nearly as good as advertised before this season. So I'm taking the running Rebels, and I don't think it's going to play a factor moving into next week. I think West Virginia, just give you a little
teaser.
A little teaser for that. I think West Virginia should have a good day then.
I do too. I agree with you. They got a lot going on for that Kansas game as well. John Beilein and the Elite Eight team's 20th year anniversary. All those guys are coming back and being honored there during that Kansas game. So it's pretty cool. They're supposed to all be there, like up to 10 or 11 guys too. So
that's awesome. Nice. I love that. I love having John Beilein back and like able to be affiliated with WVU in a lot of ways. I'm hoping they continue that connection.
Yeah. I think it's nice. To see. So that'll be something going on for that game against Kansas for the Mountaineers next week. It's also Hall of Fame weekend. So we'll talk more about that in the future, though. But we also have another Friday night game, and this is one between two Big 12 teams. But much like the Utah and Baylor game last week, not a conference game, despite it being two conference teams, as one of those previously scheduled matchups between Arizona and Kansas State, so it doesn't count as far as conference records are concerned.
So this is the second one, right? This is the second game that's like that. I was going to ask.
Yeah,
that's so strange.
I think this is the only two was Utah Baylor last week, and then Arizona and Kansas State this week. From here on out, all the other ones should be, between Big 12 conference opponents will actually be conference games. It's a weird situation.
That is weird.
But,
yeah.
Interesting matchup, though, nonetheless, I think. 8 o'clock Eastern kick. This one will be on Fox. Arizona, their defense has looked, suspect a little bit, but they still do have that great passing attack with Fafita and T-Mac out there at receiver. Kansas State playing at home. The Little Apple, they're a tough place to play. Interesting matchup, Steven. How are you feeling about it?
I do feel like I very much underrated the Arizona offense, but I think Kansas State, even though they sputtered a little bit this past week with Tulane, but they pulled that win out. So
they did.
You're going to have games like that throughout the season. I still think Kansas State is very much as good as advertised from what we talked about in the preseason. I think they're very much a conference contender. So I think that they should. It's going to probably be a really, really good game. But I'm going to take Kansas State. I really refrained from saying give me the Wildcats there. So.
Yeah, I was about to say that's what I was thinking about when I was announcing. I was like Wildcats versus the Wildcats, but we got a few too many Wildcats in this Big 12 now. But nonetheless, I'm gonna agree with
sports other than Tigers, I think.
Yeah, it's got to be. I'm gonna agree with you though. I'm gonna take the purple Wildcats, and I'm gonna go Kansas State. I think playing at home will be the advantage for them. Arizona traveling, halfway across the country as well. For one of the first times that they're gonna have to do it this year. Probably several times they'll have to do it, but I think Kansas State has enough weapons offensively. Arizona's defense has looked a little shaky, and maybe their offense is not as strong all the time either, because if that offensive line can't protect Fafita, which they struggled to do some last week against Northern Arizona, Kansas State should have a good enough defense to exploit that. So I'm going to go with Kansas State to get the win here. Brad, what about you?
Yeah, I guess I'm just being conflicting today. I see this being a bit of a shootout, and I think that Arizona's got a nice offense. I think that wide receiver is going to have a hell of a day, and I think that this might be the first little stumble in Kansas State season where people think, oh, there's some holes in that.
Okay, I can see it.
I think Arizona's defense is their defense is.
Yeah, I think it's going to I think it's going to be 40, 50-point game. But
yeah, kind of like a poor man's Baylor, West Virginia from 2012.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I could see it. I could see that for sure. Both teams have looked a little shaky. Both teams' offensive lines have been a little shaky too, as well. So it's interesting to see who can shape that up. Maybe this game will be the telltale sign of who can get that corrected and have a stronger season moving forward. But looking forward to that one on Friday night. But let's get into the Saturday slate now, where got some pretty interesting matchups. Starting with the noon games, one of those being Cincinnati traveling on the road to take on Miami of Ohio. There, that'll be on ESPNU. I'm gonna give the Bearcats the bounce back win. I think that they probably saw a win slip right through their fingers last week. They had the big advantage on Pitt, and then had a terrible fourth quarter, or really back half of the third quarter into the fourth quarter. So they're probably hungry to correct that. I think they go on the road and get the win here. Steven, what about you?
Yeah, I'm taking the Bearcats as well. I think that I really like Corey Connor. Like I said, I don't think Cincinnati's going to be upper echelon in this league by any means, but I do like certain elements of their offense. If they can get some things figured out on defense, they'll have some success throughout this season.
Yeah, I think so too. Bradley, what about you? How you feeling on this one?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Cincinnati too. I think I agree. Bounce back game. Miami of Ohio get a little bit of a tune up before starting on the Big 12. I think the Cincinnati can pull this one out.
Yeah, all in agreement there at least. Then we have North Texas traveling to Lubbock to take on Texas Tech. Noon kick on FS1. And this one's interesting because Texas Tech has not looked good this season. We saw them, barely, come out with the win over Abilene Christian. They get dominated last week. And, North Texas kind of sneaky good. So who knows what could happen in this one. But, Bradley, how are you feeling about the game?
Yeah, I was going to say, do you pick North Texas? Because it almost feels like you kind of do. But I'm gonna be generous. I'm gonna take Texas Tech. I think being at home, maybe they win one in Texas Tech fashion.
Yeah, that's the one side of it that has me wondering, is because Texas Tech has been better at home with Joey McGuire. But I'm gonna go out on the limb and I'm gonna pick North Texas. I just think Texas Tech has looked pretty bad thus far this year. Maybe they get that corrected. But Taj Brooks' status up in the air still didn't play last week. If he's not able to play this week, that's really going to hurt him as well, because they haven't had great quarterback play this season. So I think North Texas is going to exploit that Texas Tech defense again and go on the road and win in Lubbock. I'm going to go with North Texas. Steven, what about you?
Yeah, I've got to go North Texas as well. I mean, and to me, I don't think it's even. I'm sorry. Like it might be the asshole thing to do, but those Red Raiders are bad. They're bad.
They have not looked good. They have not looked good at all. So they're going to need to right the ship, because getting into conference play, if they don't right the ship with this game, it could be a bad year for them in the Big 12 play. Then we got Oklahoma State coming off a double overtime victory over Arkansas in a wild game there, traveling to Tulsa, staying in the state there, but going on the road to play at Tulsa. Another noon kick. This one will be on ESPN2. I'm not picking against Gundy in this game. I think Oklahoma State gets the win here. Steven, who you got?
I'm been very vocal about how high up I am on the Cowboys taking Oklahoma State.
For sure. Bradley, what about you?
Yeah, Oklahoma State's a sound team. I'm going to go with Gundy as well.
Absolutely. All in agreement there, just as we were on the Backyard Brawl. Like we said, that'll be a 3:30 kick on ESPN2. We all picked the Mountaineers there. Utah and Utah State. Little rivalry game here on the schedule. 4:30 Eastern
games.
Kick. Yeah, a lot of in-state games now that I see it.
Texas Tech, Utah State, Colorado
Tulsa,
State.
Tulsa,
There was
Oklahoma
another one up
State.
there. Yeah, Tulsa, Oklahoma State. There was another one above that too that I remember seeing. Lots of games. I mean, not the same state, but West Virginia and Pitt. I mean, that's
pretty close. So
closer than Texas Tech and North Texas.
A lot of regional games this week, which is nice to see, because you don't get to see that a lot in college football. But Utah going on the road to Utah State, 4:30 Eastern, CBS Sports Network. Bradley, let you take this one first. Who you rolling with?
Yeah, Utah State was one of my fantasies, or one of my dynasties back in the day, so I'm going to go with Utah State. I also don't like Utah.
I like it. Yeah, none of the three of us are really big fans of Utah. I think looking at this game, it really just depends to me. Is Cameron Rising's hand injury something that's going to keep him out of this game? If so, Utah State could give him a run for their money, which, funny enough, Utah's quarterback, if Cameron Rising can't go, is Zach Wilson's little brother. Funny enough, I learned that this week. But I think that I'm going to give the slight advantage to Utah. But if Cameron Rising doesn't play, it could be a close one. Hate picking Utah, but I've got to go with him here in this one. Steven, what about you?
Yeah, man, I hate picking Utah too, so I'm not going to. Go Utah State. Give it to them,
I
baby.
like it.
Yeah,
I like you guys riding Utah State.
Because I'll tell you why. Because you mentioned that little hand injury to Cam Rising. You want to know what that hand injury was? It was a laceration. For boys and girls that don't know what a laceration is, it's a cut on your finger. So, but then also some people did say that he dislocated his finger, which I've done that before too. That does suck. So. He's just injury prone, man. Guys. That's why I haven't been that high up on him. They're just.
And without him, they're a completely different team.
I'm sorry, Ute fans. You're not winning this conference this year. You're not.
You know, I love you guys riding out the Utah hate. I'm sorry that I didn't stick with you on that one, but I hope you guys are right because I'd love to see Utah go down.
You know, it's times like this where I question his loyalty, Brad.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you know, I can only think with my head. If I was using my heart, I would have went the same way. But you know, I tried to keep my feelings out of it.
Got to see where your loyalties lie.
The next one here on the slate, that's going to be our game of the week. So we will come back to that one because it is our first Big 12 conference game that actually counts. That's going to be our game of the week this week. So we'll go down here, Air Force and Baylor in Waco, 7:30 Eastern kick on Fox Sports 1. I'll go first here, guys. I think the Bears get the home win here over the Air Force. Brad, what about you?
So, yeah, no, I'm going to go Air Force. I just don't think that Baylor's that great, and I think the Air Force is a funky team, and if you're not got your shit together, I think Air Force can roll you. And I think that if you're not ready for them, they're ready for you. So,
Good point. It could definitely happen.
Sorry.
Baylor has not looked the best thus far this season, so it definitely could happen. But, Steven, which way are you seeing this one coming out between Air Force and Baylor?
I also don't think Baylor's that good of a football team this year, but I do think they pull out the win down there in Waco. Just from sheer fact of, I think Air Force they're just not quite up there, you know.
Yeah, Baylor should win, but, you know, crazier things have happened.
No pun intended. The Air Force is literally up there, I guess, because they're in the air.
I didn't even think about that. I see what you did there. All right, then next up, continuing the in-state matchups that we were talking about, and it's another big rivalry game. Got a little heated last season. This year, they're playing at Colorado State there. Colorado traveling there to take on Colorado State. 7:30 kick there on CBS, one of the night games here this week. I'll be tuned into this one, and I'll go ahead and make my pick because you guys know who I'm rolling with. It's Colorado State all the way for me. I'm not picking the Buffaloes. I think they're overrated. Think that they're going to win maybe 3, maybe 4 games this season total. And, the Dion experiment is proven to not be the best thus far. And I think Colorado State exposes them yet again and gets a win in the rivalry this time. Bradley, what about you?
Hell yeah, brother. Colorado State.
I like it.
Don't waste no time. It's unanimous. When you're telling the band to not play the school fight song and to play your son's rap song, y'all know me. I've been very vocal about how much of a fan I am of Coach Prime. That shit is what ruins college programs.
Yeah, the culture there is awful.
You're seeing already now why you can't get your offensive line from the or defensive line for that matter from the transfer portal. And then you wonder why you can't get these guys to block for you.
Yeah, and especially then you go, you got players throwing them under the bus in interviews, throwing their offensive line under the bus, and it's just the culture there seems like an absolute mess, and it's going to be hard to win anything when you don't got a good culture, you don't got a good chemistry, and Colorado seems like the complete inverse of good culture right now. So glad to see we're all feeling the same way about that one. Then continuing the theme of in-state matchups one more time, we got Rice and Houston in Texas playing each other there. Houston, the home team, though, 8 o'clock Eastern on ESPN+. Interesting right here. Houston with a surprising bounce back last week, hanging with Oklahoma, only losing by 4 points after we thought that they were looking pretty terrible in that game against UNLV in week 1. So interesting here. I don't really know which way to go with it, so I'm going to let one of you guys pick it first. Bradley, why don't you lead us off?
We all lose.
Indeed. Either way.
Who?
You rolling with the Owls?
Is that now?
Who?
You think Rice gets it done, Steven?
Yeah, I think I'm picking the Rice Owls.
Who?
You know what? I'm gonna say that Houston gets the win here. I think that they maybe righted the ship a little bit last week. Maybe they got a little bit of confidence playing at home. I'm gonna pick Houston in this one. I think Willie Fritz is a good coach. He's gonna have that thing turned around eventually. Should be a good game though. Should be a good game.
That should be a good game. For plenty of bad reasons, I'm willing to bet, but it should be a close game. I don't know.
Should be a close game. Yeah, that's
probably
better.
a better
Way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely better way to put it. Then we have the late game on Saturday, BYU and Wyoming, 9:00 Eastern kick there in Wyoming. This will be on CBS Sports Network. I think BYU, man, we've talked about how much of a fan we are of BYU here on this show in the past, and how about them coming out last week, 14-point underdogs, getting the win over SMU outright, the 3-point victory, and their defense looks stingy. Very salty defense there for BYU. I think they get the win. I'm picking BYU to beat Wyoming. Bradley, what say you?
Yeah, I believe in BYU in this one. I think that they are long overdue for a little bit of a bounce back. So, I think that they're going to take a step up in the Big 12 this year. And I see them going into Wyoming and handling this.
Yeah, got a chance to be a surprise team in the Big 12 this year. I think that's a good point. Steven, you love the BYU Cougars maybe more than the rest of us. So I'd be surprised if you took Wyoming, but hey, how are you feeling?
Hey, you already know, buddy. I'm going with the Cougars.
That's right.
I'm already there, man. I think they're my second favorite team. I don't have any memorabilia. I don't have a lifelong love for for BYU, or I'm not even Mormon, but I like the team. I like the team. I like their fan base. They're really cool people.
I agree with you. There. They are cool people and they have some good fans. All right, which brings us to our last pick here in our Around the Big 12 segment, our game of the week here in week 3, and it's our first Big 12 conference game of the year. We get UCF traveling to Fort Worth to take on TCU. 7:30 Eastern kick will be televised on Fox. Good matchup here. I think that UCF, probably a team that's flying under the radar, but has really been explosive in these first couple of weeks of the season. You get, KJ Jefferson and that Gus Malzahn offense, and they've really been running the football well. TCU, playing at home, that's obviously going to help them a little bit, but I'm rolling with the Knights, guys. I think UCF goes in there and gets a win, and I'm starting to think UCF is a sleeper team in the conference personally, but how are you feeling, Brad?
Yeah, I like UCF in this one. I know that they're going into Fort Worth, and TCU's no slouch, but I think that UCF's really got the ingredients to do a little bit of cooking this year, and so I'm gonna take UCF in this early Big 12 game. That's a little bit might be the first telltale sign in a crazy race for the Big 12 this year.
Great point.
We're really going to be unanimous.
It's going to be a crazy race. Are you going with it, Steven? You going with the Knights?
Man. Got to go with the Knights,
hey.
man. They've been very impressive on the offensive side of football. TCU, man, they have looked good at times, but I don't know. There's moments where their defense looks really, really bad on the back end. I mean, we're West Virginia fans. We can't say nothing about that, but they have. They've looked really susceptible on that back end. So, and also been a very, very big Gus Malzahn fan for a long time. Me and Cruz both have, I think. So,
yep. Same here for sure. Well, I like Gus Malzahn. I like the way he designs plays, the way he runs his offense, and he's got a lot of good pieces in that offense this year. So I'm excited to see what they do, and if they come out and beat TCU, could be a sign of a good year for them.
I was actually an advocate of. I ran a Facebook page that granted to 5,000, 6,000 followers. That was Gus Malzahn for WVU head coach. Way back.
I remember that before we hired Dana, we were both pulling for Gus Malzahn to be the guy.
That was my choice back then. It really surprised me that he went from Auburn to somewhere like UCF. There's no smack in the face to UCF. He's obviously done great and brought them to a conference like the Big 12. But it surprised me that he took a step to that instead of a bigger role.
Yeah, and I think that hopefully he's got him in a position to where they got a chance to be, competitive year in and year out in this conference. We'll see what happens. This year will be kind of a telltale sign of that, and especially that first game against TCU. But we're all feeling good about it, and I think that the UCF can get the win there in our game of the week here in our Around the Big 12 segment, and that is our picks for this week here in week 3 as we wrap up our Around the Big 12 segment, guys. And we'll get close to wrapping up our Backyard Brawl preview and predictions here, episode 194 in season 7. West Virginia looking to get this win in the Backyard Brawl, get to 2-1 on the season. Guys, any final thoughts here before we close up shop on the Backyard Brawl or anything else that we've talked about?
Win here is huge. I feel like it's kind of a must win. It's going to decide your whole season, kind of. Yeah, man, you need to get up, you need to get ready. It's a Backyard Brawl. Go out there, show out, have a good time. But boy, you really got to win. And not only do you got to win, you kind of got to show something. So,
agreed.
But at that point, eat shit, Pitt.
Eat shit, Pitt.
That's all I got to say. Eat shit.
That's it, man. That's it. That's all that has to be said this week.
I even put it on a T-shirt.
That's right. He's got the shirt on, man. That's just the vibe all week when it's, WVU versus Pitt week, and it's always going to be the vibe. So, it's going to have to get over that one because that's just the way things flow. We're going to be playing Sweet Caroline on Saturday, and we're all going to be chanting it, especially if we come out and get the win like we're hoping to. But having said that, guys, that's pretty much going to wrap us up here for episode 194, hoping for a Mountaineer victory in the 107th Backyard Brawl. We're all feeling pretty good about it, especially if West Virginia comes out and plays to their capabilities on offense and improves that back half of the defense. We got a good feeling about it if those things occur like we're expecting and hoping that they do. But we really appreciate you all for tuning into this episode, whether you watched on YouTube. If you tuned in there, be sure to hit that like button. Really helps a ton with that algorithm. And, of course, subscribe here for a ton of WVU football content coming in the future. If you listen on the audio side, we appreciate that as well. You can find it on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, you name it. Leave us a rating there. That really helps, preferably a 5-star rating if you would. And then, of course, shout out to our friends over at WVSportsNow.com for always hosting our episodes there as well. And be sure to check out magicmind.com/countrylt and use the code CountryLT20 at checkout to get a discount on a great mental performance shot that will help you a ton. Having said that, for my co-hosts Steven and Bradley, eat shit, Pitt. Let's go, Mountaineers. Let's get a win in the Backyard Brawl. Later, guys.
If you really want to know, then come on, let's go. Take a stroll down those